In this Passport JWT tutorial, we're going to show you step-by-step how to work with JSON Web Tokens and Passport JS. If you want to learn how to use Passport JS with sessions, then we have a video for that too. Please subscribe to the channel for more tutorials. Before we do anything, I want to talk about JSON Web Tokens all by themselves so we understand at least the basics of how they work before we start working with Passport and Authentication. So I have an empty tutorials folder, and I'm going to make a folder called JWT-basics. I'm going to cd into that folder and open up the entire thing. I'm also going to create a GitHub repository and all that. Well, I guess we could just do git init. Takes like 1 second. Okay, so now I'm going to make a server folder and then cd into that server folder, and we're going to create an official project with npm init-y, which just kind of creates the package.json file. Okay, so now we can make an app.js folder and we can create our server. So I'm just going to go ahead and write out some basic routes, and I will see you in one moment. Okay, so we have a basic server, and basically we're just pulling in Express, and then we're storing the Express server in the app const, and we're making a couple of routes. So we've got the home page, create token, profile, and wrong secret. All of them basically do nothing at this point. So let's go ahead and npm install Express. And while we're waiting, we can go to package.log.json and make a script if you wanted. So let's say start nodemon app.js, add a comma, and we'll save that. And I have a Git repository, so I'm going to make a git ignore. Okay, it's done, so let's go ahead and npm run start. Okay, and localhost 3000, nothing to see. Create token. Okay, so we have our routes working, so now we can make them actually do what they're supposed to do. So the first thing I want to do is fill out the create token route. That way we're actually able to create tokens. And that's what we're going to do in that specific route. So what we're going to do is go back to our app.js file, and inside of our create token endpoint, we're going to create a temporary user. So I'm just going to say user equals some guy with some properties. Okay, so we have a user object, and now typically what will happen is you create a JSON Web Token with jwt.sign. It's a function inside this package, this JWT package or JSON Web Token. So we're going to sign it with a secret key, and then it's going to create this jumbled string. So let's take a look at how that works. So const JWT equals require JSON Web Token, and then we can use that function or that package, so JWT, and it has a sign method on it. And so we're going to pass in the user that we want to pass into the token. So I'm just going to say user is user, and we're going to give it a key of top secret key. Okay, and then let's also store this in a variable or a const. So I'm going to say const token equals jwt.sign, and then we're going to console.log the token. Okay, and then we're just gonna say, just keep this rest.send. So let's save it, and then I think we're gonna need to install a package. Yep, cannot find module JSON Web Token. So let's close the server, npm install JSON Web Token. Okay, that's installed. Let's start the server back up. And now we should be able to just visit this create secret, or this create token, and then visit the page, because we have a console log that's logging out the token now. So let's visit, what was it, create token. Okay, coming soon, create token, nothing changed here, but if you look at the logs, we'll see this token, EY, and a big long string. So this is the token, and it's just a big jumbled string. So it's supposed to be secure because this string actually represents some data, but we need to decode that data. And the only way we can decode it is with the correct token, but also we have to have the correct key. So the benefit of having this key is that if you say you have a desktop, like a website, and you also have a mobile app, and you want the mobile app and the desktop to share the same login, well, you can do that with the top secret key. So if the desktop site has this key and the mobile app has this key, then the token should work. But if you have a different key, then even if you have the same token, it's not going to be decrypted correctly or decoded correctly. So that's why you need this top secret key here. And you can name it whatever you want. I could name it elephant or XYZGH, doesn't matter. So we have this token, but it's useless at this point. We have to actually decode it. So that is what we're going to do now, or we're actually going to write it to the database. So when you are working with tokens, these tokens have to be stored somewhere. So we've created this token, and now we have to give it to somebody so they can use it. So think of it as like a token in your pocket, or coin in your pocket, and anytime you want to go somewhere that you have permissions to, you just pull out the token or the coin and show it to them, and they'll let you in. So that's basically what the web browser does, is they store this token in local storage or somewhere, and they'll pull it out and show it to the server, and then the server will be like, okay, I see where you have access to this thing here. So that's pretty much how tokens work. So anyway, let's go ahead and make we do not have a fake file. Okay, we're going to create a new file in the server, and it's going to be called fakelocal.json. And then we're just going to have an empty object in here. And so now we're going to store the token in there. So I'm going to do that with this file system.write file, which is a package that we need to import. So const fs equals require fs. And I'm pretty sure that's built in. So we don't have to import, we don't have to install anything. So now we're going to write this to this JSON file. So I'm going to say await fs.write file, fakelocal.json is where we're going to write it to. And then I'm going to make it look like, if I could spell and talk at the same time, authorization and bearer, and then the token. Okay, so I'm going to save that, and now let's try this again. Let's look at our fakelocal.json file. We see that it's empty, but if we hit enter or refresh the create token endpoint again, now we come here and we see this authorization key has been added, or property has been added to this fakelocal.json object here. So authorization, and then bearer space, and then our token. And so this is the token with the fancy user object that we have created. It's just encrypted or jumbled, so we have to decode it now. but we have a place to actually store it. So this is going to pretend to be our browser with the token. So now we should be able to visit this profile page and see our own specific user information because we have the token with our user data inside of it. So now let's create this profile page. I'm just going to go ahead and write it out real quick and then I will explain it. Okay, so basically we're just logging out the fake local.authorization. So fake local is already stored or imported. Actually, it's not imported. So let's import that with const fake local equals require dot slash fake local.json. So we're importing this file and storing the results of that into fake local. And so we're basically saying, what is the value of fake local.authorization? Well, if we look at it right here, authorization, it equals this bearer token. So we're printing that, and then we are taking a chunk, just a portion of the string, because we don't want the bearer space, we only want the actual token. So we're taking only the actual token and sending it into jwt.verify here. And then we're also passing in the top secret key into the verify function. That way, it has the correct key or secret key to be able to properly decode it. And then we store the results of that into this result const. Then we give the result a .message property, and then we print out the whole result. And we also send it back as JSON to the client. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that looks. So we have our token already here. So now if we visit /profile, we get our user with all the data, and then we get some fancy JWT stuff, and then we get our message property that we added to the results object. And then once again, just like in the client, we get it here. Result is this user with the message that we added. So we're basically taking this token and decoding it into a user, and then we're able to use that user to do whatever we need to do. So that this is like us being logged in, and then we can grab the user's information by their ID or by their email if we had it in here. We're logged in. And I want to show you what it looks like to not be logged in also, so let's do a wrong secret one as well. Okay, so what we have here is if you hit the wrong secret, you'll still have your token available, and we're going to simulate an invalid token or an expired token, or just something's wrong with the token. And so in this situation, we have an incorrect secret. So if we were to use top secret key, it would have worked, but because we have incorrect secret, it's not going to work. The token's going to be invalid, and we're going to catch an error. And you can console log the error if you want, or you can console log the result. And we should actually probably do that. So console.log result. Okay, let's give it a try. And I'm actually not sure if it's going to make an error. Okay, so you failed to hack me. Interesting. Okay, so I think because this secret is incorrect, I think it just errors out instead of it, so it doesn't even store a result here. So I guess we don't really need that. I don't want to lead you astray. So we'll do that. So this comes out bad, causes an error. So I guess what we would want to do is console.log the error here. You could do error.message. That would probably be better. Let's try that again. Wrong secret. Okay, JSON Web Token invalid signature. So that's the situation, and then we get this "you failed to hack me" because we are logged out, or the token's invalid. So that's pretty much how tokens work in a nutshell. Now let's figure out how to get them to work with Passport. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this project just so we can keep this. I know you could use Git, but I'm not going to deal with that. JWT basics. So let's go to our tutorials folder here. I've got this basics here. I'm going to duplicate. And then I'm going to rename this Passport JWT tutorial. Okay, and then I'm going to open it up and cd into that folder, cd into Passport JWT tutorial server npm, I think it's npm start. npm start. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to write a bunch of code just to get started. So I'm going to delete everything except the app.listen and the index route. And I'm going to go ahead and write a bunch of it, and then I'm going to show you what I wrote. So this may look like a lot, but it's actually pretty simple. So we just have the view engine that we're setting to EJS. So we're going to need to install that package. And then we're setting so the request can read the body, or the server can read the body of the request. And then we have our index route, a secure route, a logout route, get route, a get for sign login, sign up, failed success, login, and sign up. And these two are post requests to handle form submission. So everything's pretty much just sending regular data except the render. So the login and the sign up have renders. And then be sure to make sure everything is async if it says async. You can always fix that later though. But anyway, so now we need to set up our view engine. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to install EJS, and I think I need body parser. Let me just stick with the EJS for now. Okay, and then I'm going to try to start it. Oh, all right. All right, so it seems like we're good to go. The next thing we're going to do is make sure that we can view the pages for the login and the sign up. And so basically we have a view engine of EJS that reads the views folder. So we need to make a views folder inside of our server. And then we're going to create login.ejs and signup.ejs. And these are basically just going to be a HTML document with a very simple form. So let's go ahead and create that now. Okay, so basically I just pasted this in here. This is literally just a regular old HTML document. I don't know what happened there. So we've got a doc type, HTML tags, a head tag with a title, and a body with an H1 that says login, and an HTML form that is a post request to the login endpoint. I've got some comments here, and then an input with a username and then an input with a password that is of type text, and it's already filled in with the default value of password. They're both required, and then there's a button type submit inside the form. That is it. And so I'm just going to save it, and then I'm going to copy the whole thing over to the sign up page. And then in the sign up page, we're going to have we're just going to say sign up for now. And well, okay, so we'll switch this to be correct right away. So we're gonna eventually switch over to email and password. So we can switch this username input field to email. Okay, so email and password, and then this button will be sign up. Okay, and I think that is it. Save. Okay, so we have an email and password in the sign up, and then a username and password in the login, and that's okay. Okay, so if we have done everything correctly, we should be able to, like the main two things are the login and the sign up. So let's test those. We want to make sure that we are able to hit these two routes when they are submitted. So we should get these to display on the page when we submit the form. So with the server started, I'm going to visit the login route. I'm going to hit login form submitted. That is good. Sign up. And if I hit sign up, oh, whoops, login form submitted. Let's go back to our app.js. Oh, we need to fix the sign up then. So the sign up still has the endpoint of login being hit, so we need to change that to sign up. Save. Okay, let's try it again with the sign up. Sign up form submitted. And a login form submitted. Okay, so we are good to go, and we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so the next step is to actually get a basic login working with Passport. So the first thing that we're going to do is go to our app.post route where we hit the login endpoint post. We're gonna delete the rest.send because we're not gonna need it. And we're going to, inside of this function body of the login, we're going to write passport.authenticate, and we're going to use the local strategy, and it's going to take a function with 3 parameters: error, user, and info. And then we're basically just going to say if there's not a user object, we redirect to the failed route, and then if there is a user, then we redirect to the success route. So we're just going to hard code that right now. I don't know where that came from. Okay, so, and that's it. So we're going to either redirect to the failed or the success route. And so at the end of this passport.authenticate function, we need to make this a function call. So we're going to call this with the rec, res, and next. And so this is the custom callback strategy. There's another way to do it that's a little bit like more built in to Passport, but I don't recommend using it because this way gives you more control. If you do want to see how it's used, then you can check out my other video where we talk about Passport with sessions. So check that out, and I will do a quick screenshot at the end to just kind of like summarize it, but we'll get to that later. So anyway, we have a custom callback here, and we're calling the local strategy. And then, so we need to make this strategy because this is not the first thing that happens. The first thing that happens when you hit this is it goes into the local strategy, and if it succeeds, well, or if it errors out, whatever the result is, that gets passed into this function here. So we need to go make this. So let's do that. We're going to do it up at the top. I'm going to put it underneath this body parser code here. And we're just going to say passport.use and a new local strategy. It's going to take in a function with the username and password that we entered in the login form, and then a callback function there, which will be, this is kind of like the next, I guess, but it's a function. So the next thing is our function body, and we're just going to hard code passing in some information to this done function right now. So we're going to say return done null username Bob and ID of 1, 2, 3. So this represents a successful authentication because there's an object as the second parameter, which is the user. Okay, so this represents a success. Let's hit save, and we need to install local strategy and Passport itself. So let's do that. I'm going to say const passport equals require passport and local strategy. Okay, and then we need to install those two. Okay, so npm install passport and passport-local. npm start. Okay, and then now let's try the login form. So I'm gonna hit the login endpoint, I'm gonna hit login, and we get success. And so let's again look at the flow. Basically, the very first step is you hit the login route. Here it renders the login form. You submit the login form. It has to be username and password right now. So we submit the login form, and that hits the post endpoint, the post login endpoint here. That starts the authentication process using the local strategy. So the next step is we go and find this local strategy here. This is where we verify that the user has entered the correct information, the user exists, and the password, has the right, number of characters, meets all the requirements. If it does, then this null represents the error object. Then the second parameter represents the user. So there's no error, and we have a user, so we're passing that in here. And then after this gets completed, this done spits out these pieces of information into the callback, which is right here. And so this is the user object that we passed into our done function above. And so if this user does not exist, we redirect to failed. If the user does exist, we redirect to success. And so that is why we were rerouted to the success page. So let's give it a try with the user failing. So I'm gonna say return done null false. Save, and then we'll try the login form again. Oops, not this one. Login, hit go, and we get failed because when the second parameter is false or it's not a user, then we get the failed situation. So this user does not exist, it was false, so we redirect to the failed route. The next thing we'll talk about is the application error. So that is this first parameter here, error, and we're just going to say something like if error, then return next error or error.message. So if you want to show the error with the stack trace, then just the error, otherwise error.message. And so when you have an application error, you pass it as the first parameter of this function up here. So we can simulate like some kind of application error if you want. And we'll do that by making a variable called myError equals a new error. and we're gonna say, oh no, an application error, exclamation point. Okay, and then now we send that as the first parameter. So we'll do return done my error. Okay, and so now, no matter what, well, because it's hard-coded, so no matter what we do, anytime we try to log in, we're going to get this error. It's going to be passed in as the first parameter, and then down here, it's going to see this error from this parameter, and then it's going to say, yes, there's an error, so return next with the error.message. So let's give it a try. Log in. Go, and we get, oh no, an application error without the stack trace because we just sent the message. And so one thing about application errors, from the way that I understand them at least, is that it's okay for them not to like redirect or whatever. And you can control that, you know, with the front end. But error handling specifically is beyond the scope of this tutorial. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on. So I'm going to go back to JWT here. The next thing I want to talk about is the optional messages that you can pass in. So you can pass in a third parameter to this done function, and that will be a message object or just an object you can use for whatever. So in the case of a failed user, you may have like a message that says user not found. So we do message user not found. And then in the case of a success, you could have, you know, something like message, congrats, you are logged in. And then from here, we could use this as the third parameter here, this info object. So now we're able to do something like failed question mark message equals info.message. And I'm just going to copy this, paste it here. And so now we have query parameters in our redirections that we can use. So info.message, and that gets passed into this redirection. So now we'll go to our failed and our success, and oh wait, not that one. We want little back ticks for each of these. And then we're going to say space and then rec.query.message. I'm going to copy this, paste it here, and then now our failed and success routes should have a message that we sent all the way back from up here. So let's try it with this failed. So, oops. Okay, login failed, user not found. Let's try it with a success. We get success. Congrats, you were logged in. So that is optional messages with the third parameter of this authenticate function, this info. The next thing is naming functions. So by default, this local strategy will have the name of local. And so because of that, we don't need to name it here. But if you want to name it anything else, or if you want to have multiple, then you're going to need to name them. So we can name our login authenticate strategy. We'll name it login. And then because this is named login, this will no longer get called unless you tell Passport what the name is. And so you do that with the very first parameter of the use, which would be login. And that's because we named it login down there. So let's give it a console log. Still works. We'll save it. And now I go to the browser. log in, submit the form, and we get our still works. So this is named authenticate functions. Let's start working on the sign up part of the functionality now. So we're gonna go to our app.post sign up, and we're going to get rid of the rest.send, and inside the body we're gonna make a passport.authenticate. We're gonna name the function that gets triggered by this sign up, and then our function, async function error user info. This is the same exact way that the other function that we did works here. So we're just going to rest.redirect success for right now. And then we're gonna go tackle this sign up portion. So up here, underneath or above your passport.use, we can make one for sign up. So we're gonna do that here. And then this is also going to be a local strategy. And there was actually something I was supposed to cover but didn't, which is the custom naming of the, oh wait, maybe I did talk about that. If I didn't, anyway, we're gonna be using email and password, and Passport uses username and password. And so if you wanna switch the username field out to like email or elephant or something other than username for the input, you have to pass an object. So we're gonna say username field, and it's gonna be email. And then password field is going to be password. And so that allows us in curl or Postman or the browsers like HTML form to use email as the key of the key value pair of the body that gets sent into Passport. So you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So here's our username and password object here, and then we have our function. So async, and this is just like this, and we've named it email now, so we'll just, you name the parameter email, password, and done. We already know how this function works. We just learned about it here in this login section. So I'm just going to go ahead and write the code for validating and signing up the user, because all we're doing here is writing to a users.json file, which we're going to create. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and write this code out, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so we added a few packages, and we're pulling from a file that doesn't exist, so we need to fix some of that. So the first thing I'll do is scroll to the top, and I'm gonna do const users equals require /users.json. That'll be our users array, and then const bcrypt equals require bcrypt. And what else is there? I think that might be everything. Okay, cannot find module users.json. That goes inside of our server folder. So users.json. Okay, and this is just going to be an empty array. So I think that might cover everything. Cannot find module bcrypt. Okay, we have to install bcrypt. So let's close the server, npm install bcrypt. And I also forgot UUID, so npm install UUID. Okay, and then my text editor pulled this dumb crypto package in, and we're not using that. So we're gonna be using UUID. So const And UUID has a weird way of importing things, so we're going to do, it's going to look like this. v4 colon UUID v4 equals require UUID. And I actually used this wrong in the actual package. So I'm going to find this, and it's actually UUID v4. So that's how we create a new random generated string. Okay, so save that, and I think we are good. We're actually not good. Down here in the sign up, we need to use these parentheses with the rec, res, and next at the end to actually call the function. Otherwise, it's not going to get ran. So you might have a really weird error if you don't do this. It might be hard to, well, nothing really happens, so it's just kind of harder to debug. So anyway, rec, res, next. This should call this function. Okay. Okay, so let's actually talk about what's happening. So the very first thing that happens is the user hits the post sign up form, or the get endpoint when they visit the HTML form, and then they fill out the form, and it hits the post sign up route because that's what the form tells it to do. So we're at this post sign up route. It goes into the body. It reaches this passport.authenticate sign up function, and so then just like what we've been doing, it goes and finds the passport.use with the corresponding name, in this case, sign up. And so here in the sign up, we run this code. It looks for a key value pair of email and password, which it has in the views, the sign up form, email, and password as the names. So that's why that works here. And so we're going to name these appropriately. I mean, you could name this username if you want, but that would be confusing. So anyway, we've got email, password, and done here. So now we try to do this block of code. So basically, we require that the user's password that they're trying to sign up with is greater than or equal to 4, and that the email exists. So if the password is less than or equal to 4 characters, or they don't have an email, then we give them a user input error. It says we give a false object for the user, which would show up in the next function. And then we also provide an optional message that says your credentials do not match our criteria. So in this case, it would go down here, and we actually don't have anything, so it would redirect us to success anyway, which is not good, but that's what we're doing. So anyway, it's going to pass this here. And then if everything is correct, and you would want to do more checks. You'd want to make sure the email is unique and all of that kind of stuff. But assuming everything works and is valid and the email is unique, we can do this block of code. So we would take the existing password that they entered, just the plain text password, and we would stick it into bcrypt, and it would do its magic, and it would spit out a jumbled string, and we would store that in hashed pass. And because we're using await, we have to have an async up here. So we'd store this jumbled string into hashed pass, and that would become the user's encrypted password, I guess. And so now we're going to create a new user object. We're going to take the user's email, and we're going to take the password, not the plain text password, but the hashed password. We're going to store it in this new user object, and he or she or whoever is going to have a UUID, a unique string. So once we have this new user object, we push it into the users array. This users array is pulled in from the users.json, which is just this empty array here. And then we add this to that array. But that's not going to be permanent unless we write the file. So here is where we use fs.write_file, which is our file system, which allows us to write to this file on the hard drive. So we write to the users.json, we stringify the users object, the whole array of users, and we stick it onto the users.json file. And then we log that we have successfully updated the database. And then we return done, saying with the new user object, and an optional message saying we signed them up successfully. So if we just run this code and everything, we haven't made a bug anywhere, we should end up with a new entry in this users.json file. So let's give it a try. So everything is saved. I'm going to go to my form, sign up. Oh, I need to start the server. npm start. Okay, so now we'll go to sign up. And I'm going to sign up with the user A. I know it's not an email, but that doesn't actually matter because we're not checking for verifying it's an email. So we're going to hit sign up. And it says success undefined. So let's go here. And if we look in our users.json, we have a user and they have a jumbled string as a password and a unique ID. And so this all works. And then let's go down here. And if we look at this success redirect route, this is why we're getting undefined, because we don't have a query parameter this time. So let's actually use the info object that we have passed in. We've passed it on both success and failure, so this should work regardless. So we can redirect the success with a question mark, message equals info.message. This is the same stuff that we covered in the login portion. So let's save that. Let's try again. Sign up. I'm going to name the email B this time. Okay, success, signed up successfully. So now let's set up the actual logging in, because this sign up that we have here so far does not actually log us in. So right now it just creates the user and then redirects us to the success. So I'm going to go ahead and comment this out for a second, and we're going to first handle the error and if the user doesn't exist situations. So we've already talked about that here, so we're just going to basically do the same thing. And actually I have code right here that I can just copy. So I'm going to copy that, paste it here. So we got if error, return next error. You could do error.message or error, doesn't matter. And then if the user is not there, then rest.redirect to the failed with a message, the info.message that we pass in with this object here. So that's good for that. And then we want to actually log the user in also. And so back in our JSON Web Token section, we were looking at how you create a token, which is just a bunch of jumbled characters strung together, but it has the user data inside of it. And so we need to, in order to log in with JSON Web Token, we need to have that data, we need to have a token, and we need to give it to the client. So that's what we need to do now. We need to create a token. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to make a body, which is going to be an object, and we're going to give it an ID of user._ID and an email of user.email. And then we're going to create the token off of, we're going to pass this body into where we're creating the token. So I'm going to say token equals JWT.sign, user is body, and we're going to give it a secret of top secret. So this will create a token for us. And I think I might have this wrong. So let me just console.log the body just to make sure this is correct. I don't think it's going to affect the app at all though, because it's just a demo. But anyway, we have this token and now we want to write it to a, somewhere where we can store it. And so in this app, we're just going to have a fake JSON file. So we already have this fake local here. So we're going to go ahead and use that. I'm going to get rid of this object though and make it empty again. So we have this token, we need to write it to that fake local.json file. Or, in the real web app, it would be, local storage or something like that. So we can do await fs.write file, and we're going to write to fake local.json. Sorry, I made a typo here. You would put a comma here, and then this would go inside of here. Hopefully that's right. And then get rid of that semicolon, and then get rid of this comma. So save, and we have our write file. So we're writing this to the fake local.json, which is going to help us log in or authenticate with the JWT strategy. So let's save this and make sure that things are looking good. So I'm going to save, and the server's good. So we're going to go here and we're going to sign up. And I'm going to sign in with D this time. So sign up. Oh, and I think I forgot the rest.redirect, so this needs to be uncommented. Okay, let's try it with, did work though. Let's fix this. Let's just make an empty array. Go back to sign up, and this time we can do user A again. Sign up, signed up successfully. If we look in here, we get one user with A. And if we look at our fake local, we have an authorization bearer token. So this was handled by our write file here. So we're technically kind of logged in. And let me take a look at this console log body, because I think I may have, yeah, I did. So that doesn't really affect the tutorial much, but I would like to, we'll make it the ID and just hope that works. So we verified that the user entered the correct credentials and it did everything as our app requires it to do. So unique email, all that kind of stuff. Here, we made sure password's the correct length, etc. And then once we've done that, we successfully gave the user an authorization token via JWT. And so now we finally need to verify that that token is valid anytime the user requests something from the server. And so that's where the JWT strategy comes in. So we're going to go to the top and we're going to initialize Passport. So you could do that maybe right here. We'll say app.use passport.initialize. I honestly don't know what that does. It's just used in pretty much everywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and add it in. And then the next thing is we're going to use a JWT strategy to verify that this JWT that the user has is valid. So we're going to have a function and a JWT strategy here. So I'm going to go ahead and type this out, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so we have our JSON Web Token in the fake local.json. And so now anytime we make a request to the server that requires the user to be logged in, we can call this strategy. We're not calling it yet, but we're going to need to call this. And so we're going to call this JSON Web Token strategy. It's going to tell us, or it's going to ask, okay, how do we get the JSON Web Token? Which is, in our case, we're going to use this get JWT function, which pulls it out from the fake local file. So it pulls out just the token. This thing decodes it, and then if it's invalid or anything like that, then it doesn't even make it past this get JWT function. But if it is at least valid, then it will get passed to this function with the token and the next function here that we can run. And so from here, we're just going to hard code a success. We're going to return a no issues, and we're just going to pass the token.user, which is the user object that was pulled out from the token. So from here, that's the end of the strategy, and then it moves into the next function in the chain. And so I'll show you. I need to get my lingo correctly, but I'm pretty sure it's middleware, but I'm not actually sure the correct terminology for this. But what we're going to do is we're going to make a secure route. So let's see, here is our secure route. And so if this is secure, then the user needs to be logged in to visit this route. And so if they're not logged in, they can't access it. So here's our function that does the rest.send secure route. But before they get here, we need to authenticate them. So that's why we're going to put in this like quote unquote middle function. I think you would call it middleware, but anyway, we're going to do passport.authenticate, and this one is called JWT. And we're not using sessions, so sessions are false. And then that's it. So if the user passes this authentication, then we can run this function. And so what's going to happen is if it gets in here and it's able to pass done with a token.user or an object from the token, then that means that it's successful and we can run the next function, which is this in this case. So I'm going to make this a little bit more descriptive. I'm going to have a little bit more information here. Okay, so inside of this function here, we're logging out these functions, or a function, and then the return value of a function, and then a rec.user, a rec.login, and a rec.logout, which are functions that Passport should give us. It's kind of like one of the magic things that Passport does for us. So anyway, but the most important thing is that we pass through this authentication. And we can tell because it'll say rest.send, it'll say welcome to this top secret place if we try to access this route. Okay, so let's give it a try. So I have my server on. Oh, and we have to import JWT strategy. So let's do that. At the top of app, we'll say const JWT strategy equals require passport JWT dot strategy. And I already have JWT here, so we're good. And it looks like I made a typo. Hopefully that works. Okay, so cannot find module Passport JWT. Let's install that. npm install Passport JWT. Okay, and let's start the server back up. Okay, so now let's attempt to log in, or not log in, but view the secure route. So hit enter. Error, login sessions require session support. Maybe I forgot this in the Passport.authenticate for the secure route. Oh, whoops. Okay, it's not sessions false, it's session false. So hopefully that fixes the problem. Let's try secure route again. Okay, welcome to the top secret place A. So we made it and we are authenticated. And so then we get rec.isAuthenticated true, rec.user, which is the information or the object we passed from our JWT. So this token. So up here, this token.user should be the thing that is this user here. So if I was to turn this into a fake user, so test, and I'll refresh, hit enter, refresh at this the logs, we get this rec.user is this misspelled word here that I put in. So the this object here passed from done is what ends up being the user. And this is stuff that Passport does for us. Now that we've covered the intro to this JWT strategy, I'm going to go ahead and fill out the rest of this code, and then we're going to look at each of the examples. So hopefully I've written this clear enough to where each option makes sense. But let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so I've got an example for each possible scenario that can happen in this JWT strategy. So let's briefly take a look at the whole flow. So just from the very start. So the very first thing that happens is the user hits the login or sign up endpoint. So here's a login or sign up. And then when they post the form or they submit the form, it will, depending on which one they pick, let's find the login one, post login, it sends them through the authenticate login strategy, or the strategy name that we named login. So in this case, that is this one here, because we named it login up here. So then it goes through here. Oh, okay, well, then we have this error that we need to fix, but let's assume that this error is not there. And it returns done with a null error and a user. So this user gets passed to the next step, which is the callback of this post login, to this authenticate login. So it passes the user here, and then we get this user and it logs us in. And assuming we have the JWT, so I guess I should have used the sign up one, but if we were in the sign up, it would make an authorization bearer token. It would stick it in the fake local.json file, and then we would have a JWT in the fake local JSON file. Or if we had a web browser and a front end, it would be in local storage or something like that. So we have this authorization token that we need to check to kind of like unlock the door. So we are going to now, on every request that is locked by this JWT strategy, it's going to take the token and verify it. So I think we have a strategy or a route. So this secure route here. So let's say we try to hit the secure route. It's going to trigger the JWT authentication strategy, which is right here. And then the very first thing is it calls this function to get the JSON Web Token from by using this function. So in this situation, we just pull it out of the fake local file, and we get the JWT. And then if it succeeds through here, then we make it into this function. So let's talk about all the different situations. So the first one is that we don't even make it to this function because of a no token or an invalid token. So let's give that a try. So I'm going to clear out the fake local file, and I'm going to open up a web browser. It's a new day for me, so I have to start over. Okay, so secure route. It says unauthorized because I do not have a token. And so if we were to log in, so let's say, well, let's just log in. Oh, I think I have to sign up. Sign up, ABC. Okay, so I'm successfully signed up, and we have the bearer token. So now if we visit the secure route, it's gonna work. Okay, welcome to the secret place, ABC. But if I make this token invalid by changing a character, and I try to hit it again, it's gonna be unauthorized. So that is both no token and an unauthorized token. We don't even make it into this in JWT strat, this function here. So it just kicks us out once we get to in get JWT. So anyway, the next step is to try with a token error. So if we have a username or email with the name of token error, it's going to simulate an application error. So this could be something like, I don't know, maybe the database disconnects, or I don't know. I actually don't know a situation where this would happen off the top of my head, but if we need to throw an error, this is, you would pass it as the first argument of the done. So to simulate that, we've made an if conditional. If the email is token error, then it will run this block here. So let's give it a try. So I hope that we have a logout. If we don't, let's just, I've forgotten what I've done and what I haven't done so far. So anyway, we have this empty fake local, so that means we're logged out. So let's sign up with, what was it, token error? Token error. So a username of token error, all lowercase, we'll sign up. We've successfully signed up, but we can't view the secure route because it triggers an error. So we've simulated an application error in the JWT strategy for users with the name of token error. So this simulates an application error, and you can hide the stack trace by doing error.message instead of just error, or whatever you want to do. And because it's an application error, it's okay to just have it route or just display the error. We could say that we logged the error or something like that. However you want to handle error handling. So the other situation is where there's an empty token. So maybe the user, the goal is to pull out a user from the token, but what if somehow there's no user in the token? Well, we can simulate that by passing it, making a user or an email with the email of empty token. And what you would do in this situation is you would pass false as the user. So let's give it a try with empty token. Once again, we're going to make an empty object here. And we're going to sign up with empty token. Sign up. Okay, so we've signed up successfully, but if we try to view the secure route, we get unauthorized. And that's because we didn't pass a user, we passed false. And the way that JWT strategy or Passport knows that the authentication was successful is to pass a user to the function. And so we've already talked about logging in, but our current example code here doesn't kind of demonstrate all the examples, nor is it dynamic. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this login strategy to be more friendly. Also, most importantly, is pay close attention to the fact that this new local strategy, we were using the username and password. And I already showed you in the sign up this username field, how you can switch it to email. So that's not going to work until we add this little object here. So I'm going to add that in. That'll be really important. So username field will be email from now on, and then password field will be password. And then we have to change that in the login form as well. So anyway. Okay, so this is the entire working code for the finished example of the login. So we are now taking an email input instead of a username. So we'll have to switch that. But once we do, if the email is an app error, then it will throw an error and then it will handle it down here. Otherwise, if it'll search the database for the user that the user entered by the email. And then if it doesn't find the user, it'll send a false object for the user and with a message, user not found. If it does find the user, it will compare the plain text password they entered. It will stick it in bcrypt. It'll jumble it into the bcrypt hashed password and compare it against the hashed password in the database and then return a Boolean on whether or not it matches. If the password does not match, it will say that there's invalid credentials. And if it finally makes it through all that, then it's a successful login. It'll pass the user object with an optional message object that says, hey, congrats, you logged in. So that's pretty much the login strategy. We've all covered all of this separately, so there's nothing really new here. So we do need to fix the email and, well, the password's already there, but we need to fix the input. So in the login, it's no longer username, it is email. And so the name is the most important part, but I guess it's probably a good idea to change those as well. This is something I didn't do in the final GitHub repo or my blog post, but anyway, email. And so now this login system should work, and I guess we can go ahead and test it. Oh wait, am I logged in? Let me log out and see what users we have. I think I have a user A. ABC. Okay, I do have a user named A. So let's log in as A. Log in. A. Okay, hey, congrats, you were logged in. Okay, so the login functionality is working. And then if we're logged in, we should be able to hit the secure route. And it looks like we can't, and that is because, sure, our login local strategy works, and we've verified that the user has entered the proper credentials, like their password matches and everything. But if you go down to the app.post, what happens after this is it actually has to log the user in. And currently, we're just sending them to a success page. So we need to actually log the user in. So like here in the signup page, in the signup endpoint, on the post submission, we actually write to the fake local.json file with a bearer token. So we create the token and then we write it to the fake local.json. We just logged in, but we don't have anything here in this fake local.json. So we have to actually make the login system work here. So I'm gonna go ahead and write this out. Again, this is nothing new. This is just creating and signing a token and then storing it in fake local.json. Okay, so the code that I wrote here, basically just some console logs and then a check to see what we actually got back from that previous function that we were working on. So if we pass an error, then it's going to error out either with or without the call stack, or the call stack. And then if there's no user passed or returned, then we redirect to the failed route with an info.message property stored in the query parameters. And this was an issue that I had spent a lot of time on. It's just figuring out how this rec.login works in the context of using JSON Web Tokens. And it appears that they just don't do anything. I thought at one point that the rec.login would add the, or would manage the state of whether or not you're authenticated in like the rec.isAuthenticated, and that it would create the user object for you with the rec.user. But if you try to look at the index route, like if you were to put some console logs in here, I'm not seeing the rec.user or a correct isAuthenticated state. So it doesn't seem like it's being managed properly. I don't know if I'm just doing something wrong or what exactly the problem is, or if it just doesn't work. So I don't know. That's still something that I need to figure out. But so far auth works, and so I haven't had any issues. So that's why I'm fine with it for now. But just a heads up. So I don't know exactly the purpose of rec.login, if it even has one. And that includes the rec.logout as well. Because with the JWT strategy, you're finding out if you're logged in by the bearer to the JWT inside of local storage or whatever. And so if you do something like this and you make it into the secure route, you do have access to the isAuthenticated. But this and the rec.user only seem to work when it passes through the JWT strategy. So that's kind of a couple of points just to kind of like be aware of. So I don't know if rec.login does anything in this situation. So anyway, we were at the login post request. And so we take the body, we store it in this body const, or we take the user's information, store it in a body const, and then we sign a token with the user's details and a secret key. We store it in token, and then we write the token to the JSON file. Then we redirect to the success page, and so now we are finally logged in, or we have the information to prove that we're logged in if we were to actually run the login code. So let's make sure that this works. And then the last thing is this rest.send. So if we weren't returning anything here or here, well, actually this one needs a return on it, but if we weren't doing these, then you could actually get to the next function here, because that's how Express works. But anyway, let's try to log in now. So log in with the user of A. I hit login. Oops, and I made a mistake. So if you look at the terminal, it says error is not defined, and that's because I messed up this. It says console.log error when it should be error. So I have to fix those as well. Error. I think that is everything. So we'll save, try to log in again. So with A, okay, it looks like it worked. And then let's make sure secure route works. Okay, welcome to the top secret place, A. And again, what I was talking about earlier, this rec.isAuthenticated true is here. The rec.user is automatically added. So it's kind of interesting, the disconnect there, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but auth works, so I'm happy with that. So I think we're pretty much done with this file. I just want to clean up a few quick things. So the first thing is the secure route. And I want to add some comments here to just kind of describe the different options and the different ways to test this thing to make sure it works fully. I also want to make sure we set up an official logout route, because right now it just sends logged out. So let's actually make it log out. And so logging out, this is the same issue. I don't know what the rec.login does in the context of JWT, and it seems like the logout doesn't really do anything either. So really in JWT, what it means to be logged out is to either have an expired, invalid, or no JWT at all. So all we have to do to simulate the logout is to get rid of the token in the fake local.json. So we've already shown you how to write a file, so it's just a tiny bit different. We're just writing an empty string to that file. And then after the file has been written, we can just redirect. And so I'm going to redirect to the login page. And that's it. And there is another option with the rec.logout. I'm going to include it in the code, in the source code when I push to GitHub, so you can take a look at that, or you can just look at this comment here. But again, I don't think it does anything, so I'm just going to not have you watch me type it. I don't want to type this out. So okay, so we're pretty much done with this file. There's only one more thing that I want to show you in the entire tutorial, and this requires us to make one more new file. So we're going to make a const secure routes, and we're going to require a new file, secure routes. And then we're going to right underneath the initialize, we'll say app.use/user, secure routes, which will prepend the /user before any of the routes that are in here. And then in this file, we'll end up using the router instead of app because it's a new file. So we're going to make this new file, secure routes.js. And then in here, I'm just going to go ahead and type a bunch of stuff out, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so the difference with this file is that we have a router.all. So every route within this section is going to pass through this. And it allows us to have a callback, like a custom callback with the JWT strategy as well. So you'll notice that in the other one, in the app, the secure route, it has us using the JWT strategy like as a parameter of the get route. But in here, this authenticate is in the body. And so because it's in the body, we can have this rec, res, and next, and this allows us a little bit more control. So basically we have a couple different options. So the first one is don't even make it through the get JWT function. So this would either be no token or invalid token. And this will show up in the info object here, or this info parameter. And so let's kind of simulate that. I think we have a token here already working. So let's try the user/profile route. So if we try this, we get the JSON, and that's because after, in the secure routes, after you go through this, then it hits the next function, which will hit this profile. So when we try user profile, it hits this all first, and then it goes into here, and then it prints out the JSON. So anyway, that's how that works, but we can simulate an error with this info if we have an invalid or not present JWT. So let's try to make an invalid one. So I changed the authorization token to be invalid. Now I refresh and we get invalid algorithm. So that's the error message, which gets passed to the secure routes function in the info object. And so if we, so it goes from the JWT, it doesn't even make it through here. And because of that, because we're trying to go through this router.all and it doesn't pass this authentication, it sends this specific error into the info. So hopefully that makes sense. And then we have control. We can redirect or we can error. So I chose to rest.send just the error message, which is what happened here. And then if there's no token, then it will do the same thing, but it will give us a different error. Save, refresh, and it says no auth token. So we have a little bit more control and flexibility with this strategy so far. The next thing is an application error. And in this case, we are using, this is the same situation using the token error as the user. So in here, when we try to log in, it will see if the user's email is token error, it will throw an error. So if an error is thrown in here with this other strategy that we're doing now, if we pass in an error as the first parameter to done, then that will get stored in the error object, which is the first parameter here. So let's give that a try. So we're gonna sign in with the token error user. So log in and token error. Hit login and it says we've logged in, but if we try to hit the user/profile route, it'll say something bad happened. We've simulated an application error, and that is because that's the error that that happens here, and then it gets passed in as the first parameter. And then here's the first parameter, error. So if error, then we log this and we send the error.message. The next thing is if the user is not pulled out of the token. So we can try that with, I forget which one it is, but let's just go look. So empty token. So let's try getting rid of the token. We'll sign in again with the empty token user. Okay, so we're gonna log in with empty token, hit login, and it says we are logged in, but if we try to hit the user profile, it'll give us this error. So we're simulating empty false user being decoded from the token. And then finally, yeah, if we have a successful user, then we can send it to the next function, because that is the only situation where they pass the authentication, and then they get into here and then do the instructions in this route here. And the weird thing is that we lose access to the isAuthenticated and the .user. So if you comment this out, then these hopefully won't show up in here. So we have to manually set these now. And so that kind of makes me wonder if this is incorrect, but I think it does work because it just gives us full control over what we want to do. That's my thought, at least. So anyway, let's simulate this with a real working user. So we're going to go to fake local, log out, and then log in with the user A, and then we'll hit user profile, and it works. And once again, that's because the whole process, we get a valid user here, then we call next, which because we have this, well, because we're calling next, this is, you could call next with an error, I think, and it would take us to this next function here, and you can do whatever you want. But we only want to send it to the next function if the user exists. And so that's where we store the user on the rec object, and then we have access to it in the next function, which in this case is the profile. So hopefully all of that makes sense. And I think that's it for this tutorial. There's actually one more quick thing, and that is you'll notice that the authenticate functions here, we're using like a custom callback. So this post login here, it has this authenticate login function is in the body, and it has a rec res and next. We're calling this function. It's in the body. And then we're also able to add another function after this. But the other alternative that I did not cover in this video, but I did cover in the sessions version of Passport, is that there's another option, which is to pass the authenticate function as a parameter of the route. So here we've got like this function, and then this is the end of the line. So, and then it's got these failure redirect, success redirect, and things. And I don't recommend doing it this way. I like the custom callback strategy a lot better because you have a lot more control, and I don't think there's any like benefits of doing the other way. But if you want to understand this other way, then go check out the Passport Sessions tutorial. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to be notified when we release new tutorials. Also be sure to like the video and leave a comment to let us know what you think. Lastly, check out the link or links in the description. We usually create a blog post to go with the tutorial, and we might have a newsletter or course or something to check out as well. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.